Today we're doing a video game music tier list, or at least some of my favorite, and hopefully it's music of games that you didn't even know existed. The goal of this video is not only rating soundtracks, but also introducing you to a whole new plethora of games. I know, big word. Or better yet, maybe you guys can tell me about some soundtracks that I don't even know about. I also want to exclude a lot of games that a lot of people already know about. Otherwise, stuff like Oblivion would be like top 4 for me. Although, now that I mention it, Oblivion might be older than a lot of people watching this video. Oh. I might also throw some honorable mentions in there along the way. So, where do we start off? Number 10, Turok Evolution. Now this game is very dated, but shit, the good things you could do in the game are actually fun as fuck. Shoot a guy's limbs off, make him have a big head, be invincible, have a black hole cube as a weapon, have a gravity gun to where you can just pick up an enemy and smash them into a wall until they're a torso. Must be Turok. And honestly, the game has the best aerial chase combat music I've ever heard from a video game, so. If you know one better, you let me know. Next up at 9, we have another childhood classic of mine, Metroid Prime. And no guys, Metroid Prime is not really the most popular game out there, and it would be even less popular if it wasn't for the remaster. I think they tweaked some of the songs for the remaster, but I think the originals are better. Overall, the vibe of the whole soundtrack is chill techno space ambience. I think that's a good way to describe it. I fucking love it. I think my favorite would have to be Phendrana Drifts, who cares? Main theme. It's super chill, and I would have to say pretty much the entire soundtrack fits perfectly with whatever environment it is usually in. If anything, the only thing I want you to know is, if you ever hear this weird plastic rubbing sound with some banger-ass music drop, it is Metroid Prime. Here we have our first honorable mention, F-Zero, a classic chiptune energetic racing soundtrack, which leads me into number 8, Sonic Heroes. Probably the best Sonic game, and absolutely the best soundtrack from any Sonic game at that. You've actually probably heard a lot of these songs in a lot of gaming videos. Well, this is the game they come from. The whole soundtrack is full of energy, and it's probably because you Sonic, you go fast. Even the darker or more slow themes are full of energy. Overall, it's a great time, not a bad game. And probably the only opening song I've ever heard that says the game's title and is still somehow a banger. Number 7, Star Fox Adventures. In my opinion, the only good Star Fox game. This is one of those games where the whole soundtrack is sort of a vibe. Well, a Jamaican one. I think Rare actually sourced a lot of the Jamaican music and put it into this, which is what you get here. And overall, I'm really disappointed that they didn't make a sequel or a prequel to this, because I still think the game is pretty good to this day. The game has a lot of depth and fun puzzles, but the ending is sorta wacko mode for sure. 6, we all know Pokemon has been known for having great soundtracks in the past, even though the new ones have been kind of a mixture of like hit and miss, but you know. My personal favorite, though, is probably a toss-up between Pokemon Diamond Pearl Platinum, which is a more popular one, so we're not going to use it here, and Pokemon Gale of Darkness XD. Why the fuck did they do XD? I don't know. Now, I've never actually played Pokemon Coliseum, but it shares a lot of the music with Gale of Darkness, and the gameplay is very similar. But I've always been kind of biased when it comes to the two, because I actually like XD more than Coliseum. But if there is any takeaway from this, Mirror Bead theme do go hard. It really is just like such a jammer and a vibe. Definitely one of my favorite Pokemon tracks for sure. And I think it's like the only Pokemon game with like a fun country ranger style music track. Another honorable mention is gonna be Bakugan Battle Brawlers. From the battle music all the way to the fucking park music, it's kind of just a jam. I don't know what to tell you. If you like any techno, rockish, 16-bit-ish style music from like the DS era, then you definitely look it up. 5 is going to be one of my personal favorite video games of all time, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. I know, fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? This is probably actually the first good Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, but Unfortunately, there's not a lot of those. And unfortunately, it's one of those situations where the time it was made holds it back. It had the walk so the others could run. And honestly, if you ever play it, the best thing you can do is probably mod it to fix a lot of the issues and make it a little bit more pleasant. But the soundtrack, though, ooh, chef's kiss. It actually hits hard as fuck considering that the game is from 2002 and the fact that it's chiptune. I didn't even know what Miracle Moon was or that it was an Easter egg inside the game till I looked it up. And one of the best soundtracks is actually one of the shortest ones called Familiar Faces. And honestly, all the store ambient music and map music, stuff like that is all great. But if you actually want a good Yu-Gi-Oh game, the 2009, 2010 World Championship 5D games, they do go hard. Which this style actually leads into another chiptuning soundtrack from the GBA era. That's Game Boy Advance for you youngsters. For The Legacy of Goku 2. I actually haven't completed this game, but I plan to, or the first one or third one for that matter. But the soundtrack always makes me think of chillwave or synthwave, like a retro techno 90s feel. If you've ever heard this in any one of my videos, it's this game. Also, I don't know why they had to make one of the sad moments in the video game have one of the hardest hitting songs on the entire soundtrack. You can't be mad if you're jamming out, bro. And to imagine that this game is actually from 2003 is actually kind of insane because all the songs kind of stand the test of time and actually were ahead of their time, for real. And the chill, slower paced songs on the soundtrack, they make me feel at peace, man. Also, the game has the best version of Cell's theme, at least in my opinion. Check it out. Honestly, it's a great soundtrack. Probably would be my favorite if it had more songs. 3 is actually one of, if not the most hidden gem game out there. Baten Kaitos. Baten? Kaitos? Who cares? Baten Kaitos! Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean. Every time I ask somebody about this game, nobody ever knows what the fuck this game is. And it makes me really sad. Because this is one of those games where you can take a model like turn-based combat and make it somewhat enjoyable for people who aren't necessarily into that, like me. I also thought the combat and deck system were pretty unique, and trying to collect the best cards to use was actually pretty fun. No, it is not a card game. Now, this game's soundtrack is like actually going on an adventure or a journey, kind of like old school RuneScape in a weird way, which is another chiptuning soundtrack that I love. But since a lot of people know what old school RuneScape is, honorable mention it is. Baten Kaitos opens up with probably one of my more favorite chill ambient type music with the ducks in like the little garden. And it probably has the hardest and probably only church song that I like. And overall, JRPG fans, this is the game y'all are gonna like the most. I highly recommend it, and I think you should probably give it a chance. I didn't really like the second game though, because they changed the formula, and the remaster kinda ruins the music for me. But it's fine, at least they made the game more accessible for people who don't want to necessarily use an emulator to play it. Now the 1 and 2 slot, I honestly think could swap around consistently because they're both just so damn good. Oh my god. 2 is, you ready? Spartan Total Warrior. Jeff Van Dyke, I'm pretty sure is how his name is pronounced, is the person behind this masterpiece. And I mean that in the most glazing way possible. He is probably one of my favorite music composers. Every single track is amazing. Even the slower or ambient tracks are amazing. And the fact that they made this hard-based techno fit almost perfectly into the Spartan Roman era is pretty impressive in my opinion. I also feel like the tracks fit with their respective stages pretty well. And I feel like all the music kind of holds up. Like the bad tracks aren't even bad tracks. They just aren't as good as the other tracks, which inherently makes them the worst tracks. And if you ever play this game, which you should, Kill Switch goes hard. And the first time you walk into the final mission area where it's in the Coliseum to slay out, it is badass. I don't care. I said it. And the winner of the best gaming soundtrack that you've probably never heard of is, some of you who probably already watched some of my videos have probably already know, XG3, Extreme G Racing, made by my favorite game studio that's no longer with us, Acclaim, who actually made the Turok game from earlier. Now, XG1 and 2 both have really good music, with 2 having far less than the others, but it does have the Farron soundtrack, and XG1 is just unfortunate enough to have to go up against the titan that is the XG3 soundtrack. The whole soundtrack is a banger start to finish, and if you like techno trance, or I think a lot of the music is actually considered like break dance or break music or something, this shit goes hard. Shit, you know it's about to pop off if the damn menu music is this good. And everyone knows that opening themes and menu music can make or break a game's soundtrack sometimes. If it ain't a racing game or maybe like club music, I don't really see a place for it. But that doesn't mean that every track doesn't fit absolutely perfectly with the track it goes to, or at least until you upgrade your engine. So yes, if you ever wanted a Tron Legacy racing game that you could kill people in, this is it. Especially if you've never played it, it's a great experience. But this is probably the soundtrack out of all the ones on the list where you could actually go out into a nightclub somewhere and probably actually hear it. Give me a fat beat! And before people say shit tier list, Skyrim or Halo wasn't on there, must be dog shit. Guys, it's meant to be a tier list of my music that I listen to on stream and shit. Music that you probably have never heard of. But overall, I hope you enjoyed. Maybe I shed some new light on a new game that you might not have even known existed. Recommend me some video game soundtracks to go listen to, and I guess I'll see you next time. Later.